The Galactic Council thought they were testing us, until we built something that started watching back. The surface of Zenthra 4 trembled under the weight of atmospheric collapse. Orange skies flickered with green lightning as the Terra virus consumed the planet's equilibrium. Once lush and teeming with bioengineered gardens, the world now reeked of acid and metal rot. Amid the chaos, a shimmering drop pod touched down, a last-minute gamble sanctioned by the planet's desperate governors, not the Galactic Council. Inside the pod, Earth's solution unfurled. A swarm of synthetic spores, developed by Dr. Amira Chen and her Earth-based team, burst into the corrupted air. Unlike the galaxy's sterile, elegant countermeasures, this solution was ugly, chaotic. The spores adapted violently, swarming the Terra virus at molecular levels, mutating faster than it could react. And then, stillness. 17 hours later, Zenthra 4's biosphere stabilized. Across the galaxy, real-time broadcasts streamed the transformation. Sterile skies turned blue. Fungal death retreated into dust. Indigenous lifeforms stirred again. It was undeniable. Earth's rogue species, the one dismissed as biologically unstable, had done the impossible. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, silence hung like a noose. Representatives watched the feed with eyes too wide to blink. Some growled. Others whispered in disbelief. Chancellor Vell, a seven-limbed scholar of the HFY Dominion, trembled as she reviewed the data. "They did it," she muttered, voice strained. "The humans, they cured it." The Council, once united in their disdain for Earth, splintered. "This must be a trick," spat Corvash of the Trelsun. "No civilized race could engineer a virus that counters another with such volatility." "It is not elegant," said another. "It lacks control." "It worked," came the tired voice of Nauker, a dying world representative who had begged for Earth's help. "And we need it." Amira watched the debates unfold from Earth's operations bunker, her hair tied back in a simple loop, face expressionless. Behind her, holograms bloomed with recovered data, simulation spirals, planetary scan readouts. She hadn't slept in 3 days. "They're afraid of us," said Major Kwan, sipping a rationed coffee. "They should be," she replied without turning. "Not because we're violent, but because we're unpredictable." The second trial came 2 days later, this time on Dolmec Prime. The planet had been half consumed, a slow suffocation of its oceans and air. With limited time, the Dolmeki elders bypassed the Council and reached out directly to Earth. Within hours, Amira's solution was tailored to their bioecology and deployed. The cure worked again. Now, silence wasn't an option. Faced with undeniable results, the Council convened an emergency session, this time with Earth's representatives seated at the far end of the chamber, flanked by armed peacekeepers and biomonitors. Dr. Amira Chern stood quietly beside the appointed diplomat, watching old empires squirm. "They possess the cure to a galactic extinction event," said Councillor Threx of the Hydery, his many eyes blinking in rapid succession. "We cannot afford pride." "And what will they ask in return?" sneered another. "Weapons? Planets? Seats of power?" Amira stepped forward, her voice calm but ironclad. "We didn't do this for conquest. We did it because no one else could. You called us unfit, volatile, barbaric. But while your algorithms chased perfection, we learned to adapt in chaos. Your systems failed because they were too rigid. Ours succeeded because we were willing to embrace uncertainty." There was no applause. Just cold silence, broken by necessity. By the end of the session, the vote passed. Earth was not just to be reinstated but named as a provisional core partner in planetary restoration. It was historic, unprecedented. But Earth refused immediate acceptance. On the journey home, Amira stood at the edge of the observation deck, watching Starlines smear as their vessel jumped through slipspace. She didn't feel victorious, only wary. "We've given them what they needed," said the diplomat beside her. "They'll never underestimate us again." "They will," she replied. Because they don't understand how we think. They don't know we don't want their power. We want to survive. Back on Earth, news exploded. From Nairobi to New Osaka, from orbital habitats to Martian domes, humanity celebrated, but cautiously. They knew the galaxy wasn't welcoming them. It was using them. And so Earth made a choice. A revised charter was submitted to the Council, humanity's first diplomatic demand. No species shall be judged unworthy based on past or biology. Council admission must be based on contribution, not prejudice. Many protested. But Earth didn't flinch. The Council passed the resolution, albeit with bitter dissent. It was called the Human Clause, an insult by some, a rallying cry by others. Newly emerging species across the outer systems hailed Earth as a symbol of hope. If the most ridiculed planet in the galaxy could become its savior, what did that mean for them? Weeks passed. Worlds were healed. Terraformed planets stabilized. Human teams began traveling to distant systems, deploying their chaotic but effective fixes. Galactic cultures, once cold to humans, now asked questions. How do you handle entropy? Why do you engineer unpredictability? What is it like to survive a nuclear century? And Amira became a legend, not because she was the smartest, but because she asked questions others didn't. Her face, once tired and overlooked in academic circles, now shone across multi-species holograms. A dozen universities requested her insight. Even AI cores wanted to map her problem-solving logic. But even in celebration, she remained watchful. Then, one night, deep in orbit above the recovering planet of Kalrath, a signal came through. Encrypted. Non-council. Non-human. It bore no origin markers. Its pulse pattern did not match any known communication format. But its data fragment, once decoded, revealed a chilling possibility. The virus that had nearly destroyed the galaxy wasn't a mistake. It had been released deliberately. And Earth's cure had triggered a second sequence. Amira read the final line of the message again. Her hand trembled slightly as she whispered it aloud. The test is not over. Phase 2 begins. And then the transmission cut to black. Amira sat alone in the observation deck of the Earth Orbital Research Station Vigilant Horizon, her fingers tapping against the reinforced glass as stars wheeled silently past. The encrypted transmission replayed in her neural interface, each word etched into her mind. The test is not over. Phase 2 begins. She hadn't shared it with the Council yet, not even with Earth's own delegation. Not until she understood who sent it and why. Down below, Earth celebrated its rising place in the galactic order, but she couldn't shake the weight in her chest. The Terra virus had nearly annihilated entire civilizations. That wasn't a random catastrophe. Someone or something had set it loose, which meant the war hadn't been won. It had only just begun. 3 days later, a second signal was intercepted, this time not encrypted, but laced with a complex fractal key recognizable only to pre-FTL species. It didn't contain words. It contained instructions, a blueprint. It matched Earth's own bio-countervirus architecture, nearly line for line, but there were additions. Additions that hadn't come from Amira or her team. Embedded deep in the code were systems Earth hadn't invented. Concepts no human had even imagined. Dr. Voles, her closest colleague, sat across from her in the lab, reading the decoded stream. His hands were shaking. This isn't just alien. This is recursive design. Whoever sent this, they've been watching us. For a long time. Amira leaned back, breath shallow. And they want us to build it. Build what, exactly? She didn't answer. She was already accessing the deep vaults, off-grid simulators not linked to any planetary system. If this was Phase 2, it couldn't touch Earth until she knew what it did. Over the next 30 hours, she ran tests. Models failed, environments melted, organisms evolved into monsters. Until, finally, one strand produced something stable, an adaptive biosphere shield, capable of resisting invasive terraforming on a planetary level. It was both a defense system and a warning. She activated the comlink to Earth's Planetary Defense Director, General Harrow. His grizzled face blinked into view, annoyed at being woken. "I hope you've got more good news about the Dolmec operation." "I have something else," she said. "We didn't end the crisis. We passed the first round. Someone's preparing us." "Preparing us for what?" Amira hesitated. "An encounter." The next day, she addressed the full Galactic Council for the first time. Every major species was present. Some still looked at her with suspicion, but most now watched her with a wary respect. She projected the recovered blueprint and its origin metadata. A stunned silence followed. "You are saying," Chancellor Vell finally said, "that the virus was not a weapon but a test?" "Yes. One that was meant for us. And possibly others. But we were the only species that survived it with a working solution. The virus evolved alongside us, learned from our models. Whoever created it wanted to see how we'd react. And now they've sent us Phase 2. "Who?" barked Corvash. "No known species has the ability to cloak transmissions across interstellar networks without trace." "Exactly," Amira said. "We're dealing with something older. Possibly pre-council. Maybe even pre-stellar." The words chilled the chamber. The idea that another power, one beyond any known civilization, had engineered an extinction-level threat and then judged them silently from the dark, was horrifying. But no one denied the evidence. The council entered closed session. Earth was asked to remain. Over the next hours, Amira laid out what she had discovered. Phase 2 was not just defensive, it was reactive. It could terraform entire planetary atmospheres to resist mutation. It could self-evolve to counter unknown threat. But it also had failsafe. Some she couldn't decode. Some she couldn't even observe without the simulations crashing. "This thing isn't just a shield," she finally said. "It's alive. Or something like it." Harrow's voice was gravel in her ear later that evening. "You really want to bring this thing online? If we don't, we may not survive what's coming next. And if we do and it's a trap, then we spring it on our terms." With council approval, and reluctant alien support, construction began. The shield was named Project Dawn. A series of controlled microworlds were seeded with it, each a testbed for performance. In 67% of simulations, the biosphere remained stable. In 14%, it neutralized external threat. In 19%, however, it evolved aggressively, consuming surrounding systems, rewriting environmental norms. A terrifying possibility lingered. What if the test wasn't just about surviving extinction, but what kind of survivor you become? Amira began to doubt herself. She wandered the artificial forests of Lab 19, one of the earliest test environments. The trees were no longer recognizable. They pulsed with internal light, breathing faintly as if aware. One of them seemed to lean toward her as she passed, leaves twitching. She backed away slowly. "They're watching us," said a voice behind her. It was Voles. "Not just whoever sent the signal. These things. They're learning." She nodded. "Maybe that's the point." A week later, one of the test worlds went dark. Its atmosphere collapsed in minutes. A wave of self-organizing matter consumed the observation base, transmitting only one fragment of data before vanishing. Adaptation reached critical phase. Pattern breach. System lockdown. It wasn't a failure. It was a choice. The biosphere had decided it no longer needed supervision. Amira shut down further deployment. The council panicked. Some called for the destruction of all Phase 2 materials. Others wanted to proceed at full speed, hoping to master the tech before the unknown creators returned. Harrow met her in the dark of the Earthside bunker. "I've seen this before," he said grimly. "You give something teeth, it bites. But if you muzzle it, it doesn't learn." She stared at the simulation, where one of the Phase 2 organisms was now replicating tool usage. "They didn't test our intelligence," she whispered. They tested our restraint. The Council voted again. This time Earth had the majority. Project Dawn would proceed, but under humanity's oversight only. A dangerous gamble. The rest of the galaxy would have to trust the species it had once condemned. And Amira? She would be its steward. On the day the first planetary-scale deployment launched, Amira stood before the final activation console. Her fingers hovered. The system pulsed beneath the glass, waiting for a human touch. She didn't smile, didn't tremble, only whispered, "Let's see who you really are." The sky shimmered, and far beyond the galactic rim, something woke up,